Tomorrow, fresh floods will hit Cumbria and Yorkshire. But here in York, we're already just starting to count the cost.
So the kitchen was complete. It had the appliances. You had the boxing case where the appliances.
Down in the room behind you. Outside, hopefully.
What did you answer that?
Not very soon.
James bought this Riverside house just a few months ago. He's been turning the basement into a flat to let.
Room shorter.
No.
How much did the rooms cost you?
Well, me and my wife have estimated we probably spent somewhere about 15,000 doing the basement up. If not more than that, with my labour and time.
Yeah.
So it's probably only another 15,000 to redo it all. When we bought this place, we knew there was. I've lived in York for quite a few years, and we knew the flood defence systems were there. So why did they have to open them? I can't see. There's a big design fault in the flood defences if the electrics are going to get flooded. They have to open the floodgates.
This is the flood defence James is out. The Foss barrier flood. Foss means river ooze. When storms hit, a vast engine pumps water from one to the other. But on Boxing Day, that pump broke. The Environment Agency raised the barrier, sending water coursing through the city streets.
Clearly being as it is. How do you get to a state where you only find out when the heavy waters come that all of a sudden the right is being flooded, it's not going to work as it should be? How do we actually get to that point?
I think the Foss barrier is obviously really important to York, and it was built in 1987. It's done its job a number of times since then in protecting the city. We just haven't seen levels like we've seen on the River Foss over the last few days before, and they were so high that they entered the pump ring, and it was about water that damaged the pumps.
But it's not
Yeah,
as
no.
high as it has been in the past. 2000 it hit 20 centimetres higher than it has been this time round. Is that right?
We've not seen the issue where it's been entering the
Oh.
pump ring before.
I don't like
This
that.
issue, it's never happened.
What do you mean?
For
Dry.
whatever reason, that decision has
Dry.
had a massive
It's
effect
not.
on homes.
Because you get a suit with it, don't you?
I know.
This is
Well, it's not
York
dry.
Viking Centre. It's meant to be for the tourists right now, but instead it's full of, well, you can see what it's full of. Tourism is central to York's economy. And every day the economy is flooded, businesses are losing out on millions of pounds. And that loss is echoed across the country.
In York, the Army are helping door to door. In Lancashire, the RAF are shoring up flood defences for what might come tonight as Storm Frank pounds the north. 6,500 homes have been flooded so far. That number could be much higher by tomorrow.
Huge amounts going. We've got the army at Preston, we've got the army at Cashrick, we've got about 90% of all the available emergency assets in Environment Agency up here in the north at the moment. I'm heading now back over to Cumbria, ready for that rain that's coming in. It's very unpredictable, that's the problem. So I'm heading to Cumbria because at the moment it looks like the likelihood is the rain will fall on Cumbria, but that could change as well, in which case we could find ourselves coming back here.
For now, some are just trying to make the best of a bad situation.
So as the clear-up begins in York and elsewhere, the focus will turn to the cost of this latest round of flooding and who pays for it all. Well, our business correspondent Helia Ebrahimi has been doing the sums, and you've come up with a pretty hefty figure, haven't you?
Well, look, the financial cost for these ongoing floods is massive for homeowners, for insurers, for the taxpayer, for the thousands of businesses who are struggling to operate. And today, KPMG, the accountancy firm, estimated that if you tot it all up, you could see a bill for the UK going up to £5.8 billion. Now, we won't know officially for a few months how much it's going to be, but if we just look at the KPMG number, the biggest proportion of that is in insurance claims, 1.5 to 2.3 billion pounds. But there are other things as well. The cost for local authorities in rebuilding bridges and roads, the cost to our premium going up, and there's also an extra £1 billion in damages for things that aren't covered by insurance at all. So that's going to be very tough for households. And think in the UK, 1 in 6 homes are at risk of flooding. So in April, if you go forward, the government and insurance companies are setting up this fund, Flood Re, that will stop you from ending up in an uninsurable postcode and then getting hit by floods. But people in York and Cumbria are going to be thinking that's too little too late, especially in light of the fact that the government has been so heavily criticised about cutting the budget.
And of course it's heartbreaking for householders affected, but it's concerning businesses as well, isn't it?
Look, it's a massive easier for businesses. The Federation of Small Businesses today stark warning 50,000 companies in the UK have been refused insurance cover altogether. They want to see another kind of fund like flood relief set up for companies. We've got a Chancellor and a Prime Minister who are heavily promoting always this so-called Northern Powerhouse. But that's no use, Kathy, if all the businesses are under 2 foot of water.
Indeed, Helia, thank you very much. Well, joining me now from York is Chris Stewart, the Conservative leader of York City Council. Chris, tell me first, do you think that government spending cuts have made your city and beyond any more vulnerable to floods?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the problems we've seen in York this year are particular to the Foss barrier, the extent of the rain we've had, and then the barrier not being deployed due to technical problems. I think when David Cameron was in York yesterday, he was at pains to point out that flood spending has actually increased and there's actually more spending in the north than the south.
Well, I would dispute those figures, because if you look at the fact that flood spending is going to go down during this Parliament, but also just to put the head of Yorkshire Regional Flood and Coastal Committee, who warned the government just weeks ago that the cuts could mean discontinuing some flood defences. Do you not accept that it might have been better for some extra spending on flood defences than we've seen?
Well, we've not got anything in York that we've asked for and not achieved. In terms of the particular floods now, where we're very focused on dealing with the here and now, we asked for more armour, we got that, we asked for more sandbags, we've got that, and the government's been very clear on funding that it will be available. The conversations with ministers have been very positive. So no, I don't think so, and I think we need to look at everything we can learn, but that's time for a few weeks from now, rather than at the current time when we're dealing with the clear-up still.
So you're entirely happy that last Conservative government cut capital spend on flood defences by nearly 30%, are you? And that hundreds of proposed flood defences cancelled. You're happy?
Well, I don't think it is the time to go into those sort of issues now, but the last government came into power with a deficit across the country of £175 billion, and so we had to make cuts. There had to be choices made. We're the country who lives beyond our means.
Do you think there is a north-south divide, though, that you've got these state-of-the-art flood defences in the capital, for example, less so, maybe you're happy in York, but elsewhere, aren't you?
Well, it's certainly not the case. I can only speak for York. If we look at areas of York like Lehman Road, where we've just got new defences in the last 2 years, that would have ordinarily
They just spat all over that screen.
at all, with the exception of a few who were slightly worried. So we're a far better place. There's always more spending that we can have, but again, that's something that the government is receptive to listening to. They've made it clear that money is not the issue when it comes to the flood defences.
So you don't want overseas aid, for example, to be diverted to flood spending across the country?
Well, overseas aid is an entirely separate matter, I think. And, we can afford what we're spending on overseas aid and we can afford what we're spending on flood defences. But again, it's really about, as councils, we have to look at what we can influence. That is the practicalities of dealing with the floods, the absolutely superb efforts of the emergency services, the Army and Mountain Rescue, rather than us getting involved in a political game as some people would like to.
Chris Stewart, thank you very much for joining us. Well, now a couple have been convicted at the Old Bailey of planning a terror attack on London on the 10th anniversary of the 7/7 bombings. Mohammed Raymond took to Twitter under the name Silent Bomber to ask whether he should target the Westfield shopping centre or the London Underground. The jury heard that Raymond had carried out tests on explosives paid for by his wife, Sana Ahmed Khan, in his back garden, as Fatima Manji reports.
In his back garden in Reading, would-be suicide bomber Mohammed Rahman films himself testing out a small explosion. It doesn't seem to quite go to plan. He can be heard swearing. Rahman sent the video on to his wife Sana Ahmed Khan. Today the couple were found guilty of preparing an act of terrorism. The court heard how the pair had been planning a massive terror attack on London to coincide with the 10th anniversary of the July 7th bombings. The prosecution said the two had a common interest in violent ideology and had repeatedly researched the 7/7 bombers. Rahman even called one of them his beloved predecessor. Mohammed Rahman first came to the attention of police through his tweets under the name Silent Bomber. In one instance, he asked people what his target should be, tweeting, "Westfield Shopping Centre or London Underground. Any advice would be greatly appreciated." In another, he threatened, "I've rigged my house to blow at the push of a button a my bedside if the Popo tries to raid man. Nobody gets in the way of my jihad. When police arrived at his house on May 28th to make an arrest, it wasn't rigged, but they found stockpiles of highly explosive chemicals, pieces of an exploded device, and knives. The prosecution said Rahman was just days away from making a bomb which would have caused multiple casualties. His wife had been funding the activity, paying over £14,000 into his account, including money from payday loans so he could buy the chemicals. The court heard the pair had secretly married because Sana Ahmed Khan's family disapproved of Rahman. Both were drug users, and her defence said she believed she was giving him money for cannabis and cocaine. But the prosecution said the pair were dangerous individuals who posed a genuine threat and were close to carrying out an attack. A hearing for the couple's sentencing will begin tomorrow.
Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi has hailed his army's recapture of the city of Ramadi, saying Islamic State militants will be defeated in 2016. The retaking of the strategically important city, which is 60 miles to the west of Baghdad, marks the first major victory for the Iraqi army against IS. The city has been under IS control since May. Now, sex, drugs and rock and roll. Lemmy Kilmister lived fast and didn't die young. Just days after his 70th birthday, the Motorhead frontman fell victim to what's been called an extremely aggressive cancer, diagnosed only on Boxing Day. The band has asked fans to play his music loud in his honour. Kenyan Zera looks back at a rumbustious career, and just to warn you, his report does contain flashing images.
This is only a famous song to see if you recognise it.
Glastonbury this summer. What bigger stage for Motorhead's signature hit, Ace of Spades. For 40 years, Lemmy, real name Ian Kilmister, growled out some of metal's loudest hits, inspiring later generations of rockers like Dave Grohl, Slash. Music! There was the guest appearance of the Young Ones, and Ace of Spades, the acoustic blues version.
The Ace of Spades.
The music, the life, the drugs, Lemmy devoured them all.
It's from what you do, you know. That's all you need. I mean, most people in their life don't get to do a job they even work remotely. For a weekend, you know, I get to do it all the time, it's great.
Lemmy started as a roadie with this man, claiming not to remember much about him.
You were a roadie for Jimi Hendrix, weren't you?
I was.
What's that like?
It was very confusing, really, what with all the acid and everything.
But Hendrix was the awakening he often referred to. The early 70s, as Lemmy took his gravelly tones to Hawkwind, kicked out the drugs. Before founding Motorhead, genesis of metal.
So if you're in a rock and roll band,
What is hair?
you think you're loud, you think you're heavy, you think you're nasty. Put on
Yeah, it
the
looks
set.
weird.
If you're anywhere near that, you're getting somewhere. If you're not anywhere near that, just give up. Stop wasting everybody's time.
Motorhead kept recording, kept touring, kept releasing albums. But of late, Lemmy was clearly unwell, and it showed. One of his last appearances on camera, when their Paris gig was cancelled post-IS attacks.
I was gone the day after. If they stop you, then they win. They're not going to beat me.
Lemmy was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer on Boxing Day. He died last night, age 70.
And our main news tonight, floodwaters have brought down an 18th century bridge in the centre of the Yorkshire town of Tadcaster. Accountants have suggested the total cost of the flood could reach £5.8 billion. We're back tomorrow night at 6:20. Until then, that's the Channel 4 News. Good evening.